All right, good people, if you can hear the sound of my voice, if you would please make your way back to your seat. Your break time is officially over. If you can hear the sound of my voice, if you would please come back to your seats. Our 10-minute break is over. We only got less than 2 hours to go. All right, and so what I'm going to do now is exit out of Kahoot, so you guys can exit out of Kahoot. We're going to go through our agency PowerPoint slides just to make sure that you guys understand everything that you need to understand so there are no questions or confusion once we leave this part of the journey. So we learned prior that agency agreements and disclosures are required. And that's under the agency agreement and disclosure rules. We know that that is one of the 5 responsibilities for a broker in charge. Agency disclosures and agreements must be reviewed and provided by the brokers that are affiliated with that broker in charge. And that broker in charge has to follow up and ensure that they are meeting that requirement. So the BIC must ensure that all affiliated brokers disclose agency and execute agency agreements timely and properly. And previously we went over the record retention rule. We learned when the clock starts to tick, and we learned when brokers are responsible for submitting documents to the firm within 3 days of receipt. And we learned that the purpose of the Working Real Estate Agents brochure is to do what? Inform consumers of their, what type of options? Agency options, so they can make an informed decision. So it makes them aware of the types of agency relationship and the services that the real estate company can provide the buyer and seller. And it also reviews how real estate agents are paid, which is so important. You can use this as a selling technique. So if you are very good at explaining this brochure, you very well could get a client from you explaining this brochure the appropriate way. So when must it be disclosed? You guys told me at first substantial contact. No later than first substantial contact. You guys also made me aware of when first substantial contact is triggered. And again, when is first substantial contact triggered?
When they open their mouth.
Did you see how she stopped me in my tracks? Right? Like I was going to agree and continue to walk, but you know, that stopped me, Miranda. So what Miranda said, for those you didn't hear, she said when they open their mouths, and you know, I can't agree with that, Miranda. First substantial contact is triggered when what? Give me an example.
Money.
Confidential information, money, ability, price, where the broker and consumer starts to act like a relationship exists, an agency relationship. Then I also heard motivation over here. Thank you so much. Is it Ms. Tina?
I'm a right-of-way agent, natural gas line right-of-way agent, and people absolutely refuse to sign or initial that brochure. And we write on it that they refuse, but we have to go on and I have to barter money with these people for easements. So if you don't get initials or a signature, are we supposed to be going that far without anything?
Well, you have made them aware of who you work for. And if they continue on with the transaction after you have made them aware of who they work for, they are of competent mind.
So by law, I can continue.
You haven't violated license law and commission rules because you have met the requirement of providing agency and disclosure. Okay, now I only am telling you about license law and commission rules. I don't know if you have another governing body that you must adhere to. So let me go ahead and interject that out there now. You know, you're the first person, actually the second person I've had with utility in a room, okay?
You could, and this is what we were told, and I did do general brokerage. I've had a practice resident real estate, but I mean, this is wrong, but you know, I had people, even when I was selling homes, that refused to sign it, and I would write their name down and the date and put refuse to sign, and at least kept that with my records. So same thing with easements, that's what I do now as well.
So Ms. Tina, based upon the scenario that you gave me, you are meeting the license law and commission requirements even if they refuse to sign. You're presenting it to them and you're documenting the date and the time and their refusal. Okay. so you've met license law commission rules. Thank you for that question, Ms. Tina. Thank you for your input, Ms. Moran. All right, so when must it be disclosed? At first substantial contact to whom? All prospective buyers and sellers, in all residential and commercial transactions. That was a little aha moment for some of you guys, because I heard about the commercial, and I was like, what? But that was great, because you learned something. You learned at least one thing today before you left. So, what's the purpose of agency agreements? It is the employment contract between whom? The firm and the client, or the company and the client. So it's the employment agreement. So who are the parties? Who are the parties in an agency agreement? All right, Ms. Lee, thank you for that comment. Ms. Lee said the company and the agent, or it can also be the company and the client. So it's the real estate company, and that company can be a firm or sole proprietorship, and a buyer or seller. So the buyer and seller, or the real estate firm, which is the company or the sole proprietorship. Now, when do they have to be in writing? And when we say when do they have to be in writing, when do agency agreements have to be in writing for a listing agreement? Immediately at the beginning. What about buyer agency agreements? Prior to presentation of an offer. Fabulous, you guys. So with the owners, immediately before services are provided, and with buyers, no later than the offer. No later than the offer. So the Working with Real Estate Agents brochure must be provided to all prospective buyers and sellers no later than first substantial contact. All prospective buyers and sellers in residential and commercial transactions. The purpose is to make them aware of the agency options that your firm practices and make them aware of the agency options that are available to them so they can make an informed choice as to how it's best for them to work with you. Now, you can't make anyone sign anything. If they refuse to sign, you just document their refusal to sign and you proceed on. Are there any questions or comments about anything along our agency stop of the way? So someone help me out. What are the 3 responsibilities we talked about so far as it pertains to a broker in charge responsibility? What was the first one? Thank you, Ms. Liza. Ms. Liza said advertisements. What was the second one? Yes, thank you. Is it Ms. Donna? Yes, Ms. Donna. It was record retention. And the third one? Was agency. Awesome. Awesome. And so now we know that another responsibility of a broker in charge is provisional brokers. So I want you to go ahead and take out your phones for me. And we only have a 4-question quiz here for Kahoot. Your PIN number is 947-484. 947-484. I'm sorry, I'm not offering any prizes at this time. I don't know how I feel about this help either. And are we done yet? Really? I was just commending how awesome you were to my director, and you guys do me like this? Like I feel like I'm gonna cry now. I'm just lost for words. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start. And so our first question is, how does a provisional broker remove the provisional status? Affiliate with the BIC, complete the 90-hour post-license education program, require 2 years of full-time brokerage experience. And 51 of you got the answer correct. It is complete the 90-hour post-licensing education program. So if a provisional broker wants to remove the provisional status from their license record, they must take 3 30-hour post-licensing education courses to remove that provisional status. The rule that was passed last year, but with an effective date of July 1, 2020, states that provisional brokers have how many months? 18 months to complete their post-licensing education to remove that provisional status. Great job. We're going to get you some help in there. A provisional broker may affiliate at the same time with a maximum of how many BICs? No more than 1 BIC at a time, 2 BICs if they are located in different parts of the state, 2 BICs if the second BIC is for the team to which the PB belongs. All right, so a provisional broker may only affiliate with 1 broker in charge at a time. And you will find that under the supervision of provisional brokers rule, a provisional broker can only have 1 BIC at a time, and that BIC is responsible for the supervision of that provisional broker. Squirrely is on top. Thank you, Squirrely. Provisional brokers may receive brokerage compensation from whom? The PB's supervising BIC or employing company, the PB's client, as long as the supervising BIC is aware, anyone, as long as it's disclosed on the closing documentation. All right, great job to the 56 of you. The PB supervising BIC or employing company can pay the provisional broker. So the rule says the provisional broker can only be supervised by 1 BIC at a time, and that provisional broker must receive their compensation from that broker in charge. So if there's a provisional broker, and I'll give you an example, there's a provisional broker at an open house, and the house goes on a contract that day, and an agent in their firm says, thank you so much for helping me out. Here's $100 for your time on Saturday. Can that agent pay that provisional broker that $100 for helping them out? No, you're absolutely correct, because the rule says what? They must receive their compensation from whom? The broker in charge. So if they want to give them that monetary gift as thank you, they must give it to the broker in charge. The broker in charge then disseminates it to the provisional broker. And we have one last question, I think. Which of the following might be used to determine adequate BIC supervision of an affiliated provisional broker? The availability of the broker in charge and provisional broker, monitoring of provisional brokers' brokerage activity, establish written policies and procedures, or all of these above. That is correct. What the commission will look at was whether or not the provisional broker and the broker in charge were available for one another. So was the broker in charge available to assist, to advise the provisional broker? And then that provisional broker make himself available to receive that assistance? Are there written office policies and procedures in place for that provisional broker to follow? Is the broker in charge following those policies as well? And then last, monitoring of the provisional broker's brokerage activity. What policies and procedures does that BIC have in place to ensure that the provisional broker is doing the agency disclosures and agreements like they're supposed to? Are completing transactional documents as required? Are following license law and commission rules? So are they monitoring their activity? Do they have some rules and regulations in place within that firm to show that they are supervising that provisional broker? So great job for all of you that said all of these. Of course you can,
So
Sonny.
if you wanted to pay a provisional broker to show houses for you, you say 5 houses, then you say $50 per house you show, is that
right, so Ms. Honey, let me make sure that I'm understanding your question. So you're saying you would like to pay a provisional broker to assist you with showing houses?
Yes.
That provisional broker works for another firm?
No, within the same
That
firm.
provisional broker works within the same firm? That provisional broker is supervised by how many BICs? One BIC. So if you want to pay that broker in charge to assist you in showing houses, license law and commission rule says that the broker in charge must pay their compensation.
Okay, the provisional.
The provisional broker must receive their compensation from the broker in charge. So if you want to show gratitude or pay that provisional broker for helping you out, that's great. But guess what? You need to pay their broker in charge that $50, $75, whatever you agree upon, and that broker in charge will then pay the compensation to the provisional broker. If you pay the provisional broker directly, you're violating license law and commission rules. If that provisional broker accepts that money from you, they're violating license law and commission rules. Because the rule says compensation as a provisional broker must come from your broker in charge.
How about if it was a broker to broker?
Broker to broker,
Yeah.
like full broker to full broker, that's something totally different. However, caveat, you have to adhere to what your firm policy is. Your firm policy might say you can't pay broker to broker transaction. The commission does not have a rule against that. However, your firm policy might. All right. Any other questions? Ms. Cassie?
So should PBs be on teams? Because if aren't, like, if you're on a team, don't you have two bids technically if you're, or I guess it depends on the team structure as well.
All right, Ms. Cassie, there are great questions, and I think you kind of popped yourself with the second one. But her first question was, should PBs be on a team? Now, I will tell you, the commission, we don't give advice, and we don't tell you what you should and should not do as it pertains to you structuring your business. That is totally up for you as a company or firm to decide whether or not PBs can be in your team. As the rule stands now, a provisional broker can only be affiliated with one bid. So it depends upon how the team is structured, whether or not that provisional broker can be on that team. So if that team is a separate entity, meaning they are a separate entity, they have their own bid, but they are duly affiliated with another company, then that PB can't be on that team because that team is affiliated with the mother company. So that PB will have what? Two bids. Now, if you have voluntary cooperation amongst 4 or 5 agents to say, cover for me, I'll cover for you, you help out here, I'll help out here, but they have not created a separate entity, they're just volunteering with one another, then that provisional broker can be on that team. Why? Because there's only one bid. So it depends upon how that team is structured, whether or not that provisional broker can be on that team. Great question, Ms. Cassie. You're 3 and 3 today. Great question. All right, so what criteria does the commission look at to determine whether or not a broker in charge is supervising that provisional broker? And this is just a little small review. What did we discuss previously, 3 minutes ago? What criteria does the commission look at? Great, thank you, Danny. Thank you, Miranda. Thank you, Ms. Christine. We look at availability. Availability of whom? Both the provisional broker and the broker in charge. Is the broker in charge available to provide that assistance? Are they offering mentorship opportunities or training programs? Is that provisional broker making themselves available to receive mentorship, to receive training? Also, whether or not the broker in charge has written office policies and procedures and monitoring that provisional broker. So availability of BIC and provisional broker, written office policies and procedures, training and office meetings, whether or not those trainings are conducted via webinar, face-to-face, FaceTime, Skype, or other technology methods, that's okay, but are they being offered? The commission does understand that there's going to be varied supervision based upon the experience of provisional brokers. But the key word is here, they still must be supervised. So you might have a provisional broker that comes from a related industry like mortgage or finance. So they're gonna know a lot of the terms that someone who is 18 or 20, fresh out of college or high school might not know. However, they are still provisional brokers until they remove the post-licensing education, so supervision is still a must. However, the level or degree of supervision might be a little different. Does everyone understand that? Then the ratio of supervisors to provisional brokers, and we talked briefly about this before our break. The commission does not dictate how many provisional brokers or full brokers you affiliate with you. That is for you to decide. You know what you can handle. However, if you have 20 provisional brokers affiliated with you, guess what? You need to be able to show that you are supervising, that you have written policies and procedures, you are monitoring 20 provisional brokers. Don't forget that supervision is still there for full brokers as well, it's just less restricted, but you're still responsible for all brokers. But the commission looks at how you're supervising provisional brokers because they are provisional, they just got their license. And as a big, we do understand that things are going to happen. If they do happen, what are you doing to fix it? Are you taking remedial action? Are you intervening, investigating, and attempting to remedy the action? We call it a corrective action. Are you correcting the action? What policies and procedures are you putting in place for the firm so that this doesn't happen again? And so you need to be able to show that as well. Show any corrective action or any remedial programs that you put in place after something has happened with a broker or provisional broker within the firm while you were there.
Does the real estate commission have any example of written policies?
All right, that's a great question, Ms. Sunny. She asked, does the Real Estate Commission have any examples of written office policies and procedures? And the answer to that is no. We don't have any examples, again, because we don't want to suggest and we don't advise people how to structure their business. But there are a plethora of resources that you guys can access with your Realtor Association if you are a member, or the Google, as my father says. I mean, you can search for a lot of resources that might be able to assist you. Or you can ask the broker in charge of your firm if they would mind sharing some of their written office policies and procedures so you can kind of piggyback and see, this is what I like, or this is what I don't like, and this is what I would change. And so that's a great starting point as well. Are there any questions about anything that we reviewed as it pertains to provisional brokers? So we are in agreement that a broker in charge must supervise that provisional broker. And I've gotten several questions about PDs being on a team, so guess what? That is a perfect segue to teams. So as a provisional broker, we learned that a provisional broker can have only one broker in charge at one time. And so the question that Ms. Morgan graced us with, and Ms. Cassie, well, I have a provisional broker, can they be on my team? Well, that provisional broker can't be on your team if you are a separate licensed entity that chooses to be duly affiliated, and we're going to call it the mothership big. So that's the big or the larger firms that most brokers are affiliated with. So you have the larger firms, and then they operate as a team, a small firm within a firm. And that small firm within a firm still chooses to be part of that larger firm for a plethora of reasons. Why would a small team still choose to be duly affiliated with that larger firm?
Brand.
All right, Ms. Miranda?
Brand.
Ms. Miranda said branding. Okay, great. What's another reason? Technology. Thank you, Ms. Amy. So we have branding, we have technology. Awesome. Danny said training. And then I had this is Mr. Danny too, right? And Mr. Danny said insurance. So there are a lot of reasons why you would have an entity still be duly affiliated with a larger entity for training, insurance, branding purposes to get their name out there. So what is a team within a real estate company? When you think of the word team, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Two or more people. Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Two or more people. She started a perfect sentence for us. Let's finish it. Two or more people that work together. Keep going. All right, so I got this side. I got this side. Help me out.
To accomplish something.
What, Mr. Richard? All right, so we have two or more people working together to accomplish something like real estate transactions. Thank you, Ms. Christine. See, y'all were a perfect chorus. All right, so we have two more people that want to work together to practice real estate brokerage. Great. What's another thing that comes to your mind when it comes to team? Advantages or disadvantages?
Shared responsibility.
All right, Ms. Chantel said advantage is a shared responsibility. Thank you so much. Ms. Joanne?
Accountability.
Ms. Joanne says accountability, so team members holding each other accountable for what they are or are not doing. Great comment, thank you. What are some other advantages?
Share the wealth.
Share the wealth. Thank you, Ms. Elaine. Share the wealth. Disadvantages. All right. And you know I knew that was Mr. Richard before I even looked over there. Mr. Richard said, and sharing the wealth is a disadvantage. What's another disadvantage?
Consequences for bad transactions or something gone wrong.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chantel. Ms. Chantel said consequences for bad behavior or transactions that have gone wrong. What's another disadvantage?
Uneven workload.
Uneven workload. Thank you, Ms. Joanne. What's an example of an uneven workload?
Somebody account is showing and then they're
Never doing their part.
All right, so Ms. Chantel said someone that does all of the showings, but you still have that other person on your team reaping some of the benefits, no matter how small or large they are. Great job. How many of you are a fan of teams? Don't be afraid, it's okay. How many of you are not a fan of teams? Okay. I had my first experience with a team when I sold my house. I thought it was an awesome experience only because I was well informed. Very well informed from the rainmaker of the team what was to come later. So from the first day of the listing presentation, he made me aware that you will be contacted by her for this, you will be contacted by him for this. He was awesome. Now he was awesome before he knew where I worked. And so I saw his awesomeness and I was like, oh wow, somebody actually does it right. So I was like, you can have my house, you can list my house for me. And he was awesome throughout the experience. So the reason why he was so awesome, because I had about 4 or 5 people come to my house. He was the first one that went over to work on real estate agents brochure with me doing his listing presentation. Before he asked me for my mortgage paid off. The other 4 people did not ask me anything, did not review anything with me. And so it's very important. That's why I said you can use that as a selling tactic. I didn't turn them in either. It was a teachable moment. I told y'all I am nice. I believe in the law of attraction. You do good by people, good will come back. Stephanie wanted me to turn them in. Stephanie, no. But just make sure that you guys are doing everything that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. But that was my experience with teams. It worked well. It worked well on the other side of the transaction as well. The people that actually bought the house, they were working with the team too. So the only way a team is really going to work is if everybody knows that, one, they're on the team, and 2, everybody that's a part of the transaction know their responsibilities and their duties. I believe that it really can be derailed if communication is lacking. So you guys have told me what is a team in a real estate, 2 or more people that work together in a brokerage transaction. So we all know that there's a rainmaker, there's a successful broker. That broker usually has an assistant, closing coordinator, They have a broker that lists homes, and you might have a buyers-only broker as well. Then you have other individuals that pick up the slack where needed. You guys told me that some of the advantages of working in a team could be the quantity of homes that you either buy or sell. It could be wealth as an advantage or wealth as a disadvantage. It could be an even or uneven workload as well. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of working with a team. Now, if you were the broker in charge of your own real estate firm, how many of you would allow teams within your firm? Who minds talking with me for a moment and tell me why they would allow teams?
Mentorship?
Because some agents function better outside of lead generation and function better with that leaded person there. So if they have that follow up.
Okay, so Ms. Cassie says she would allow teams because some people work better with others. You have those kinesthetic type people that they learn by doing. And so you have someone that's showing them what to do and they're actually doing it at the same time. And so they could lead to being a very productive broker. Then I see some people do their hands like this. And so what does that mean? Is it more money for the firm if you allow teams within your firm? It can be. Mr. Danny said it can be, and some of you agree with that. Someone else want to talk with me about why they would allow teams within their firm?
Tracy?
Miss Tracy.
I think that teams are good, especially when you have newer agents or people that are just moving into the area that have experience but don't know people. I think that's a team is a good way for a newer agent or someone new to the area to learn the ropes, get leads, and eventually build their own individual business for themselves.
All right, thank you for that comment, Ms. Tracy. So she gave us several examples for them to get to know the area, for them to get to have experience with knowing the market and what to do and what not to do in this particular brokerage area versus out of state. That's a great comment. Thank you so much for that. So, remember I made you aware that team structures vary and the commission doesn't care, and I hate to put it that way, but we don't care like how you structure your team. What we care about is while you're structuring your team that you follow license law and commission rules. Now, we're going to go over 2 scenarios for teams and 2 scenarios only. Now, I'm not saying that these are the only 2 scenarios that teams can have. I'm not saying that. These are just the 2 scenarios that we chose to talk about today in your lesson. Now, if you have particular questions about teams or team structures, it would be best for you to call the commission and speak with someone in regulatory affairs so that they can assist you. But I am happy to answer any questions about the 2 scenarios that we present, and you're going to see very distinct differences between the scenarios. And you'll be able to tell me which scenario a provisional broker can be a part of. And